Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. It is the top of the hour, so we are going to just give everyone a couple more minutes to file in, and we'll begin really soon. All right, we see those numbers climbing pretty quickly. We got a few more people joining and joining. I'm happy to see it. We're going to give it just another more minute. So it's like, yeah, lots more people joining right now. All right. It is 10:02 Pacific, so I'm going to start now. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to share my camera here and say hello. Welcome to another product series webinar. So I can see, yeah, our attendees are rising and rising, and we had more registrants this quarter than we have in all of our past ones. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is a product series we do every quarter on the first month of the quarter, where we share lots of great information. And yeah, for those of you joining us, welcome. For those of you who keep coming back, love to see it. We keep getting more and more registrants every time, so it makes me very happy. um, Perfect, and you should be seeing my screen here. Awesome, the product series. All right, now let's dive into it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to launch a poll for everyone here. I have a little question that's going to relate to one of the topics we're going to cover today. So I'm going to launch this here, and you should see it show up on your screens. The question being, have you used the customizable calendar filters yet in Function Point to create tasks to send to your Google and Outlook calendar? Very curious to hear who's making use of this new feature, new and improved, I should say. We had something sort of similar before, but it's way cooler now, way better. Awesome. Okay, I'm seeing the results coming in. It looks like we're like 85% not yet, 15% yes. Cool. Well, that means this we're going to cover that a little bit today, and that'll be very relevant to many of you. But we also have some other great new features as well to cover for those of you who already know what they're doing there. All right, so I'm going to end that poll. Cool. All right, so first, we're just going to go through a couple housekeeping things. Let's get started. So yeah, our agenda for today, just some introductions, and then we're going to go through what we've done in Q2 of 2024. I'll go through all of the things that you would have seen released in the last 3 months. And then we're going to talk about what's coming up for the next 3 months and what changes you can expect to see in your system. Oh, and the other thing I want to talk about here is our host, of course. Somehow I skipped that slide. I want to introduce myself, of course. My name is Talia. If I haven't met you yet, I'm the product manager here at Function Point. I have the pleasure of working with our CX team and our support team and development and marketing and sales, and just working together to hear what our customers and potential customers want to see from the product, and making sure that it lives up to that and it goes in that direction. So I get to have lots of fun conversations about the cool things people want to see, and I get to have exciting webinars like this where we actually get to celebrate those things and show you all about them. So yeah, happy to be here today for another session. And then my co-pilot, who could not be farther across the country from me, we're on complete opposite ends. I'm on Vancouver Island on the west coast of Canada. I'll pass it over to Alec, and he'll introduce himself.
Sure. Yeah. Hello, everyone. As Talia mentioned, my name is Alec McLeod. Looking at our list of attendees, I think I know a bunch of you already as your CSM, but I am a customer success manager and product specialist here at Function Point. I'm coming to you here today from Prince Edward Island on the opposite coast. Talia, fun fact, I checked this morning and there's about 4,500 kilometers between us today. So real coast to coast experience here at Function Point.
You feel so much closer. Awesome. Well, happy to have you, Alec, today. Definitely partner in crime here. And if you have any questions, please put them in that questions chat. Alec is going to be on the other side answering them, making notes to follow up if it's something we want to take offline with you, or also pitching them to me so that we can address them for the group. And if there's anything that I've missed and we need to circle back on, yeah, so send your questions to him and he'll be there for you. And then also just to note that this webinar is going to be recorded. So if there's anybody else on your team who you want to get in on this and have this information for, you'll get a copy of this, the slide deck as well as the recording. But also if anyone you know has registered for it but they weren't able to attend today, they're going to get the video as well sent right to their inbox. So we'll have that for you. All right. So with that being said, a little quick overview of what we have done in the past 3 months. The first big one is the Function Point to Google and Outlook calendar integration. So we've improved our calendar filtering, our in Function Point calendar filtering, so you can build customized schedules and then use those links to then have URL subscriptions in your Google and Outlook calendar that continuously update and builds really cool customizable filters. So I'll show you how to do that today. We've also increased the line limit on our BI reporting. This isn't what I'm going to show you today. It's really just something that we fixed, made better. Previously in our BI reports, you could have up to 10,000 lines in a report, but we know for many of you who have been longtime Function Point customers and or also just like power users, tons of timesheets coming in, that 10,000 line limit is easy to hit. So we've increased that. It's now 100,000. So I know a lot of people are pulling some very cool, very data rich reports with that new increase. So just for everyone's knowledge there, I won't go through it in the demo today, but make sure to check it out. And then the last thing that I'm going to go through today is our task dependency enhancements. I am very excited about this one. It's part of our project management initiative to make sure that we are really supporting these more agile workflows and more just customizable workflows, things that are going to suit your agency more likely in practice. And so I'm going to go through that and all of the cool things that those dependency enhancements include. Okay. So with that, I'm going to start sharing my system and we're going to take you through. I'm going to start with dependencies and then we'll go to the calendar. And I'm just going to turn off my camera while I do that so you don't have to see the side of my face. All right. So we're ready. So you should be seeing my Function Point system right now. I'm on my dashboard and the first place I'm going to take you, and if you've joined these webinars before, I'm sure you know this, but just a little reminder for those who may be new here. My system might not look exactly like yours, especially in the terminology. You can see I have projects in this section. Some of you might have that name campaigns. That's going to be like a folder of all of your open work. And some of you might not have jobs. You might call that projects, just to make it nice and confusing. You might call that projects or your work orders, something to that effect. So yeah, just to sort of orient everybody in the system here, I'm going to go into a project. I have this 6-month social media campaign project open. And in this campaign, I'm going to take you to my job financials. I have 4 things open and running. I have this monthly social media management job, which is where my team, my media and social team are regularly going in there to track time for the work that they do, posting and monitoring the social media. But then I also have these other 3 jobs that relate to the assets that we're actually creating for those media campaigns. This is a really common setup. And I wanted to start here to just bring some context to this task dependency discussion to really throw at you all why task dependencies and the improvements that we've made with it are going to help you really customize your workflow and work across teams. So keep this structure in mind. We've got a campaign here. We've got, our social media management job, but then all these other great jobs where we manage those assets. And the first place I'm going to go into is this one here. We're going to call this is going to be my test one, our new fall product line, social assets. I'm going into this job here so we can manage just the budget for this one. I'm going to go into my schedule for it specifically. We're going to spend a lot of time in schedules today. And I have a nice, pretty simple schedule here. And I'm going to delete all of these. You can tell I was playing around with it before, but I totally just gave away the lead of all the dependencies you can do. I'm just going to reset it here and start from scratch so I can show you off. We have a pretty simple schedule here. And so, it starts with completing a brief about, what sort of assets are we creating here? What's the goal? And then we go into designing these 3 different assets. And maybe you want them all separate because they have different instruction. We want to put different descriptions on them. We want to assign them maybe to different people, Katrina versus Victoria. So you can separate them out rather than just putting them all in one task. People like that. And then I have a task here for client review and revisions. And then finally, the final file prep. So like I mentioned, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about dependencies. And I want to talk about what's new, but I also just want to talk about the why behind why bother using dependencies. Some of you might use them really prominently right now. They might play a big part in your workflows. Some of you may have tried it, but because of maybe some limitations that we've now expanded upon, decided not to use them and maybe need a little refresher on why bother? Why are they wonderful? So dependencies are not only going to be, this nice visual link between 2 tasks. I can hover over and pick up that little circle icon that appears on the end of a task and connect it to whatever it's meant to be linked to. And we can see that directional arrow there showing us that design assets is a dependent task on its predecessor, complete brief. They do multiple things though. It's not just a visual. It also has to do with moving tasks around in a schedule. So you'll see right now, if I move complete brief and I put it afterwards, we're going to get that nice red line. It's going to tell us that doesn't work. That just isn't going to make sense from a date perspective. But if we have a just dependent tasks when moving predecessor turned on, those dependent tasks are going to ensure that we can move one and it will move out all of the ones that follow it. This is especially helpful when you have long schedules and something in the middle, maybe someone is on vacation or it's just not happening in the right amount of time, so that we can move it out and it doesn't affect anything before it, but it will push out the remaining part of a schedule. It's also really good if, say, your client says, well, I can't get my review back to you until, the next week. You can push it out and then very easily give them a report back on, okay, and that's how that's going to affect like the rest of this project, for example. So we have this one-to-one relationship for dependencies, really common, and a lot of people set them up like waterfalls, one-to-one-to-one, and the whole project works like that. Not only is this great for moving tasks within your schedule and the visual, but it also comes into play with statuses. So we can see here that this task is in draft status. This whole schedule is. I'm not ready for people to start working on it yet, and that's what the status of draft represents. What we want to do is, some people would say, okay, we're ready to go with this. I'm going to move all of this to assigned, and then the individuals responsible for this can then look at when they're able to start this and do so then. But what that kind of does is it might clutter up their assigned column on the Kanban board or their assigned board on their dashboard. And overall, it just is presenting things to, say, Jess, that she really can't work on yet. She can't work on it until these design assets are done. So that's the third benefit of a dependency, is it triggers your task statuses like a waterfall, where if I turn this one to assigned, I sort of push over that first one as the project manager to really like push it like dominoes. just in this case, is going to move complete brief to in progress and then into completed. And as soon as that task hits the status of completed, it's going to move design assets, what is currently its dependent task. It's going to take that one out of draft and move it to assigned automatically. And this means that your project managers don't have to be responsible for turning over each one every single time it's ready manually into that assigned status. And it also means that you don't have to really clutter up an actual to-do list for the assignees. And I'm going to really show this off after we set up all of our cool dependencies. I'm going to show it off on the Kanban board so you can all get a really good visual of it. But let's talk about now the different types of dependencies and predecessor relationships we can set up. I have this one-to-one here. And what we've always been able to do is I can click this again and I can say, and we're going to start design assets 2 and design assets 3. It doesn't matter when you work on those. We have 3 days to do it. Just get it done in that time, and they can all start as soon as that complete brief is done. So when the complete brief is marked as completed, all these will open into assigned. What is brand new, this came out last week, is now the ability to have a many-to-one relationship, where for this client review and revisions, we want all of those assets to be compiled. We don't want to go back and forth with the client, 3 different times. We'd rather just deliver it to them in a package. We can take these and actually associate multiple to the same one. And so now client review and revisions is going to sit in draft until the time when all 3 of these are moved into a completed status. We can have 2 and 1 outstanding, and it won't automatically trigger over. It truly is going to be when it meets all 3 of these conditions. So that's the brand new feature there, is that many-to-one. One-to-many has always been possible, and one-to-one has always been possible. This is the brand new one here. And I'll finish it off here by saying, once we're done with the client review and revisions, then we can do our final file prep. So that is one of the brand new things, which is multiple task predecessors that we can see here. And it's something that we've gotten a lot of requests for. I actually just went through our AHA portal and changed a few of those requests to released, which hopefully triggered some emails for a few of you to let you know that this was out and ready to go. But yeah, we had lots of votes across that. So I expect some pretty cool schedules to come out of it. Just to take a little beat on that automation, I want to just flag for a couple people here who may have had some troubles with it in the past, or just what has to be necessary to make the automation of those status shifts happen. If you ever have trouble with it, there's basically 2 things that could be wrong with it. And the one is, and they both make a lot of sense when I say them, you'll be like, of course, is if it's not actually assigned to anybody. So it won't, if say all 3 of these had gotten completed, one of the only reasons why client review and revisions wouldn't get triggered over is if we hadn't actually assigned it to Jess Bird, because of course we can't move a task out of draft until it gets assigned. So that would stop it. But if you're building your schedules out from the start, shouldn't be a problem. And then the only other thing that might stop it is, say, if this status was already moved, like if it wasn't in draft to begin with, it was already in progress or something, we're not going to move it back to assigned, which I think makes total sense. Okay, so that's a bit about that. This is one example, but I wanted to sort of show you another good example. This is saying, we have multiple assets and we want them all to be completed before we can move on to the next client review and revisions. But I'm going to show you, say, a multi-phase schedule here. I'm just going to pop it open in another tab. Sort of doing the classic cooking show thing here where I already have one pre-made to show you. What a lot of people have been asking for this multiple task predecessor relationship for is so that you can set up milestones in your schedules. And this one we can see is multi-phase, and they don't really have names, but at the end of this phase, I have a team meeting. And that's really our way of signaling that this phase is done. And so we have that triggering everything in the next phase. We can say, we can set up this multi-relationship, but also in this phase 2 here, maybe I have these 2 assets again, and they're both necessary for completing this final milestone for the phase. it's going to be a lot easier to use those tasks as checkpoints in your schedules, because we can relate them to everything in your schedule if you really wanted. If you had 10 lines of tasks, you can make every single one dependent on that final delivery, or yeah, dependent on that final delivery. So this is just to show you that there's a lot of ways to work with this. Two of those being coordinating multiple assets, but then also for multi-phase projects, making sure that we can set up some checkpoints and milestones and have a lot of predecessor tasks to them. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this schedule that I have here. This was our one that we were just working on. And I want to show off the other big feature that we came out with, which is cross-job dependencies. So you may remember at the beginning I was showing you how this is part of a larger project. So I'm going to go into this back into this 6-month social media campaign here. And the idea of the setup that I have is that we have these jobs for the assets, but then we have the job for actual like social media management. I'm going to go in there to that schedule. And I have it already set up for a 6-month contract. And my phases are my task groups. This is a pretty common way that we see agencies working, so I wanted to make sure that this felt really relevant to your teams. But yeah, so I have May here, and we can see that our regular month is just repeating tasks. It's the same thing of prep the month's posts, a couple weeks before the month starts, strategy review with the clients, run the posts, review KPIs, and send to client in the week following the month. And if I collapse these, we can see how that spreads out over across this 6-month contract. Now, those assets that I created were for my September monthly post. It was our fall product line. Something about this is that previously what people would do in order to trigger this next work is they would set up a single schedule with dependencies all through it. But technically in this case, that's not really right. It's not really what we want, because starting to prep the schedule posts for September is not dependent on August. Like, we still have to review our KPIs and send that to the client and run, we're still running our monthly posts when we're planning that September. So we don't need to rely on within schedule dependencies to start off this September one. What we need to do is we need this task to be dependent on what happened in that other schedule. And so that's now possible. We're going to do that from the task basic info page. So when I click on this here, it's going to take me to my basic info page. I'm sure you're all very familiar with it. It's a pretty common page in the system. And we can see dependencies can be linked through this section. So cross-job dependencies, just for everyone's knowledge, does have to be managed through the task basic info page. And what I can do here is say a new predecessor. And if I click in, you're going to see a list of all of the tasks that are on this schedule. And we can see this one says it's already linked. That's the dependency that's just down here. But what I can do is I can remove that schedule, we can remove that filter that says only tasks on schedule. And now it's going to present me with a list of tasks across all of the open jobs for this client. So I can actually say now, my final one was it was final file prep. There we go. And so I can search it by the task name, but we can also see it has that job reference number in there. So you can absolutely search by the job number as well, because of course, how many design tasks are you going to have in there? Probably a lot. So we can use that job as a signifier. And I can click that and create my link. And now we can see that's 30374 is leading to 30371. I'm going to show this off here in just a minute, but I know I've covered a few different things already. I want to take a pause. Alec, how are we doing on questions?
We're doing well. Yeah, a couple of questions have trickled in, and I
Okay.
do have one to bring up here. Now, granted, this answer will depend on an agency-specific workflow, but the interesting question is, what if we don't want our tasks to automatically become active just because the prerequisite tasks are complete? For example, our tasks don't become active until client review is complete.
Yeah. So let's say, would then the question be that you like the dependencies, we like having a link and a reference, but we don't necessarily want the automation of task statuses?
Yeah, that's the way I've interpreted it as well.
Okay. I could definitely say it would definitely, like you mentioned, depend on the agency's workflow. But if you didn't really want that, then you totally could set up your dependencies and at the beginning of work, just move all of it to in progress, or sorry, all of it to assigned, and sort of forget about the draft status. Draft could be used like what you want for scheduling, but then when you're ready to go, it's locked in. We move everything to assigned, and then that way people just manually move them to in progress. It's almost just like we would get a step ahead of it and we would sort of omit draft from the workflow. And then that way you're kind of bypassing that automation. There could be a couple other ways to handle it now I'm thinking about it. But yeah, that would be the first one that comes to mind for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. I think I will check in with this person after the fact. Maybe we can find the right solution for them.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else for us to tackle?
No, otherwise that's pretty much it for now. So I will issue a reminder. Please feel free to get your questions in. I'm here to reply in real time where possible, like we've done just now. We'll be able to bring your great questions to Talia so she can address them on the webinar. But I'll hand things back to you, Talia.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll end the suspense for everybody of what this looks like. I'll go to our schedule so that they can see what this turns out as. I'm going to go back to the actual schedule for my monthly social media management. And I'm just going to collapse this and go down to my September one. And we can see here, it has a little link to show us our view cross job predecessors. So this is what you're going to see whenever there is a cross job predecessor that exists. When you click on it, just a little note, it's going to bring you to the task itself that has the cross job predecessors. The reason for this, the reason it's not bringing you to the predecessor is because, of course, you can have multiple. There could be, 2 or 10 different cross job predecessors that are going on. So there isn't just one to bring you to, but we can come here and see exactly what that is. And of course, follow through to see it. And so I'm going to show you now what that fall product line schedule looks like. This was the first one that we created together. We can see that final file prep now has view cross job dependencies on it there. And we can make note of it. So that is one of our brand new features as well, linking across these schedules. I know that sometimes people have had trouble setting up schedules in the past or made just like one big job to put the asset creation and the social media management all together so that they could show these dependencies. The point of this being that you don't have to do that anymore. You can really separate your jobs and your schedules based on what's going to work best for your team. Maybe these are two completely separate teams that work on these types of schedules. So you can really make them work more for yourself and not be worried about, yeah, having one very large schedule, which we all know can sometimes be a bit overwhelming. Okay, so I promised I was going to show this off in the Kanban board. First thing I'm going to do, like I said, kick off your first one. We're going to turn complete brief to assigned to really break this out and get us going, tip the dominoes. And I'm going to go to my Kanban board. I always like showing off the Kanban board, and I want everybody to know about it. So if you click tasks and to-dos and you do not get a board like this, is because you're still in our list view, which is wonderful and it's fantastic if you love a list. If you're more of a visual person like myself, this Kanban board can be excellent. And all you need to do to get over to it is, this is probably what you see when you click on it. You're going to go to display and then switch it to board view. And there's so much that you can do in this Kanban board. I definitely recommend checking out some of our Kanban related webinars if you want just like a complete tour of it. But you can also set it so that your tasks and to-dos here links you right to the Kanban board by changing your view settings in your default view. I always like pointing that out because this is where I want to be whenever I'm looking at tasks. So I have a filter on this just for clarity for all of us to take a look at, and it's just showing me all of my tasks for that client in that 6-month social media retainer. I have my complete brief. I'm gonna skip in progress, and I'm just gonna move it straight to completed here. And when I refresh, we're gonna see all 3 of those things show up in assigned. We're gonna move 1, 2. If I refresh, we still are not gonna see that next one show up because we know all 3 of those have to be completed. And that's when it's going to kick over that client review and revisions. We're going to keep moving with that. Final file prep, and this is our cross job dependent one. So again, I'm going to move that here. We see that 30374, and that's what's going to kick off prep and schedule September posts. So we've just done a multi-to-one dependency as well as a cross-job dependency that spans schedules. So that is really a culmination of the task dependency enhancements that you can all see in your system now. Okay, I'm going to move on from task dependencies, and we're going to take a quick look at creating calendars and schedules for your Google and Outlook calendar. I'll take just one more question before I move over to totally switching topics. Alec, anything I should answer first?
No, nothing related to what we just talked about. But for everyone listening, if you can't tell, we're both very, very excited about these new task dependency releases. So yeah, let's go
Yes,
ahead and talk about calendars. Yeah.
sweet, let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to go to my dashboard here. If you haven't ever used the calendar in Function Point, there's a couple ways you can get to it. You can click this calendar icon here. You can also build a dashboard that has it as you could do like a small panel, or you can do like a quite large panel. I have it just taking up my whole view here. I'm just going to go into August because I have a bit more things going on for it in there. This is a culmination of tasks, job delivery dates, and events. And we can build custom filters in here to show us exactly what we want. And we can have a list of really as many as we need. So we can see here that I have my classic. If you have never looked at this before, your classic is going to be automatically filtered to show you all of your tasks, tasks that are assigned to you that are either in progress, draft, or assigned. I just tried to quiz myself there. Yeah, those three statuses. That's going to be the default. Feel free to edit it, of course. And this is going to be a really common export. Building something that is quite literally, what are my tasks? What do I have to do? Let's get that in my Google or my Outlook calendar so that I can just see it in my days. That's really common. Totally do that. But I want to show you something a little bit, I think something pretty cool and really helpful for project managers, which is actually creating schedules and calendars for your clients. I know it's really helpful that when you're in the mindset for that client to just see everything you have going on for them. You want to not just look at what you have assigned, but you need to see what's going on for them as a whole from a project management perspective. And so I created one here, say for Kingsgate Driving School, and I have Branson Incorporated and Bird Streakle. I'm going to create a brand new one, and we're going to work on it together. So we can see I can edit all of my existing ones, but I can also create a brand new one. And this one I'm going to create for McDonald and Company. That's the one that I was just building schedules for in our examples. So we'll see some really familiar data show up. Give it a name, if I can spell. Perfect. And then we can go through in this third section here of edit calendar parameters, and we can choose what we want to include. The first one is events. And if you've never seen this calendar before, you're like, what is an event? They are quite literally just small little things you can put on your calendar. They only exist on the calendar for the time being. And it can be just like team lunch. You don't track time to them. They don't really get assigned to anyone, but they're just nice little like kind of placeholders in your calendar and reminders. And I'm going to turn them off for this because they're not really relevant to the type of filter that I'm going to be building, but tasks absolutely are. And so we can build a custom filter here. So it's not also just like a massive export of absolutely everything to our calendar and really cluttering it up. I'm going to go into company and I'm going to add in McDonald and Company. And so everything's going to be filtered to that. My automatic task status is for draft, assigned, and in progress. I'm going to add to this. I do want to see completed tasks. I don't want them to be removed because if we're thinking about this from a project management perspective, I need to just see it all visually, even if it's been completed. I don't want it like out of sight, out of mind. I do want to know. And I'll do confirmed as well, but leave canceled because they can go away. And then I'm going to go into jobs, and I can keep jobs turned on. I'm going to, again, filter that to McDonald and Company. If you're wondering what we mean by jobs, any of your jobs that have an actual delivery date on them, that's going to show up as an item on your calendar. Really good for just a nice high level look. Even if if you do a lot of little jobs for customers, if this was to be the only thing you include in your calendar, even that would be super insightful. So I'm going to save and finish this, and we can then see that it's showing up in my calendar options. McDonald's and Company, cool. And we can see that one in purple there. That's my job delivery date. And then I have all of my tasks showing up here, my preps and schedule September posts. We know that task. The next step that I can do is I can go in here and I can click this little calendar icon to click subscribe to calendar. And you get your options here for if you're working with Outlook desktop or web or Google Calendar. Quite simply, they are the same link, but there's just different steps to take. So we wanted to give you an indication of what you're about to do here. And they also do have different syncing times. I'm going to show off the Google Calendar just simply because if any of you were present on our last CX webinar, you'll know that Alex showed this off a little bit, and he took you down the route for the Outlook. So if you do have specific questions about that, definitely check out his webinar. That would have been our most recent one. I'm going to show you Google today, though, just to spread the love. I'm going to click here to copy that URL, and then I'm going to go into my Google Calendar. And you can see here, I have this Branson incorporated already. I have Burrard Street Golf. I really love this view because it just means that you can see in a format that is super familiar. I mean, that's really why we have this feature, because people love the familiarity of their Google and their Outlook calendars, which is so fair. We want to see things alongside all of our tasks and our meetings. So I really like having the company views. Yeah, just a really good view of the month of when everything needs to get done. And we can layer them up, of course. Say I have my top 5 customers that I, as a project manager, are responsible for. This is going to offer me a lot of flexibility to get the perspectives that I need. And from the other calendar section, you're going to go to plus, and you're going to click from URL. And you're just going to paste that URL right there and add your calendar. It's going to think about it for a second. And then we're going to see it show up on our side there for McDonald's and Company. If I click on it, I mean, this isn't function point settings, of course, but you know, Google's great at giving you lots of options and whatnot. Really cool is that, so Google has a specific time for when they pull updates to URL-based calendars. And so that sync time is going to be 8 hours. For Outlook, there's a lot more customization for that they offer. So definitely check out our support article or the last webinar for more information there on how to make it sync even quicker. But for Google, what you can also do is you can have it email you anytime something's changed. So if something on this McDonald's and Company calendar had event on it changed, we can get an email right to our inbox if you want to use that over, say, the function point alerts. So bringing this into your Google Calendar definitely offers you some cool options. And then if I go out of settings here, we're then going to see that our McDonald's and Company one is showing up with all of our final file prep. Of course, it chose a very bright color. I'm just going to tone it down here a bit. Oh, that's not better. We'll do green. There we go. Yeah, so we can see there all the things that we've got going on. Those are our design assets. Yeah, it's pretty simple and straightforward, exactly what you need to see. But what I'm trying to communicate here is just that it's not just for your tasks. I really recommend layering calendars and bringing a bunch so that you can work through those different visibilities in a view that's super familiar and comfy to you. Okay, so those are our new features for the last 3 months. I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint again here, and we're going to talk about what's to come. Oh, actually, again, I keep jumping the gun here. I should pause and ask any questions, Alec.
Thank you, Talia. No, a little late on questions. I'm going to take that to assume that this has been very, very clear. Everyone's pleased with the level of detail you're giving, but certainly still some time. So if there are questions about the function point to Google Calendar integration, please feel free to get this in and I will get an answer to you.
Yes. And of course, like if you are now going to go try this out after this call, or you're just thinking on it the rest of the day and questions pop up to you, please let us know. Support@functionpoint.com. Yeah, just let us know and we'll get back to you on it. So we definitely, you can always ask us questions. What's next? We got a lot happening soon. The first one that you're going to see, and this is going to be in August, is staff photos. So everywhere in the system that you see those little icons that have your staff's initials in them, they're typically blue, those little blue icons all throughout the system, you're now going to be able to see their lovely faces there, should you choose, or they choose to upload a photo. It's definitely going to bring some color and some just personality to your system. So that's coming soon. Files on comments. This is going to be across tasks and notes. No longer are you going to have to upload the file directly to the file or the note and then make your comment referencing it. You can just upload the file right along with your comment, and there'll be no question about what you mean or which file you're referencing. Predicted hours. This is going to be a cool little one. It's going to exist on tasks, and it basically is going to combine the number of hours that have already been submitted to a task with what your staff has manually marked as the percent complete on that task. So then it'll do a nice little equation and say, based on the fact that they've done this many hours and they're saying they're 50% done, we're estimating it's going to come out with a total result of so many hours, and maybe that's over or under, and that will just help you gauge better as a project manager who you maybe need to check in with or give support to. We're going to be introducing the task drawer. So now I have to say, this one here, I wanted to show you today. It's really close. It's getting close to being done. And on our last webinar, if you attended, I know I really I sort of dangled the carrot for this one that it would be coming out in the next quarter, but we hit a couple delays, all for good reasons, because we just want to make sure that this release has the bang that it should. It's going to be a brand new component where instead of having to click a task and be brought to a brand new brought to an entirely new page for the basic info for that task, a drawer is just going to pull out from the side of the page so that you don't have to leave what you're currently looking at. It's going to be the introduction of the drawer component, which we're then going to extend throughout the system to invoices and expenses, but it's also going to introduce our brand new UI. So it's a big one. It's going to be it's worth waiting for, I promise, and I'm very excited to show you all. What's also going to come out with that is you're going to be able to push timesheet reminders. So for tasks that as a project manager, I know people have spent more time on this. We're looking to close it up. There's going to be a button on there that you can just push a timesheet reminder and make sure that you get an email right in that person's inbox with a link to the task that you're expecting them to track their time to. And then finally, some QBO improvements. So for everyone who's using our QuickBooks Online, this is going to mean basically we're doing a bit of back-end improvement just so that what it translates to for you all is there's going to be less of a requirement for you to continuously perform full syncs. We're going to work to gather that syncing information behind the scenes and just make sure that company and payment information is up to date, so that it runs less of a risk of throwing your integration out of sync and out of whack. And this is just going to mean that there's less errors and it just runs a little bit smoother. So also exciting there. And I know the finance teams will be looking forward to that one. That is our webinar for the day. I covered everything, and I think we were like just on time. We're like, yeah, a minute and a half left. But please, we definitely have time for one more question if there is one there. Let me know, Alec, what do we think?
There are a couple of minor questions here, Tyler, that I'm answering, but I don't think there's anything worth bringing to the group at this time.
Okay.
Maybe we can give everyone another minute here to get questions in if they've got one.
Totally.
And of course, if you have asked a question and you haven't received an answer yet, I will get back to you. If not within the webinar or by email after the fact today.
Absolutely. Perfect. We'll stay on until this minute runs out. Yeah, get in your questions like Alex said, and we'll stick around. But I see people dropping off. That's all we have for you today. And hope to see you in 3 more months.